Throughout the years, I've got quite a few questions about does ichthyosis keep me from doing anything as far as activities or sports or hobbies or something, things like that. I'll say yes and I'll say no. It's kept me from doing things I like doing, but at the same time, it's basically conformed me to not liking and liking certain things. Like, I've gotten so used to either not being able to do something or not, or being, held back from certain things because of my skin condition, that I just don't really like doing them. You know, a lot of it is either associated with my ichthyosis or with my asthma. I can't run for long amounts of time. I'll either get really, really hot or start wheezing. So there's that problem. As far as playing sports, I played golf and tennis in high school. I never really had a problem with tennis. I just couldn't. I just couldn't run that much as far as with my asthma. Golf, I did have a little bit of a problem with because we played it in like August and September in Florida. So I mean, the humidity was pretty high. It was pretty, hot. I mean, we. I remember, quite a few times I had to tell my coach I can't play or I can't go to this certain tournament because we had to play 18 holes and we had to carry our clubs all around the course. We couldn't use a golf cart, and I'm like, I will not last that long in this heat. So, as far as sports, I've tried other sports. Most of the problems I had, it wasn't that I couldn't do the heat. I'm not a very athletic person. I'm scared of things flying at me. So softball didn't work, soccer didn't work. I played soccer in middle school and never really had a problem with getting too hot. I just was not very coordinated. I rode bikes when I was younger outside. I rollerbladed. I rode my scooter. But as far as like to other parents, I would say, let your kids try something before you tell them they can't do it. You know, most kids, when they get to a certain age, they know how far they can go, or they know how far they can push themselves before it's too far. And that was one thing my parents really, let me do. They're like, well, you can do this, because they knew I knew when to stop. They knew I would not push myself to the point of where I was, passing out. Probably the closest I would learn to, if it was really hot outside, I wouldn't over exercise myself or overexert myself or run too much or do too much at one time, because then I do get too hot and I do overheat because I don't sweat that much. Another thing I had a problem with, I took ROTC in high school, and I remember one time we had to stand in, formation, and I kept my legs locked, and I got too hot from that because there wasn't enough blood running through my entire body because my legs were locked, so I did get a little lightheaded and dizzy and things like that, but that really wasn't associated with my skin. My other hobbies, most of my hobbies include being outside. I like to fish, I like to hunt, I like to shoot guns, do archery, ride four-wheelers, hike, walk around. And I've never really had my skin condition hold me back from any of those. Because most of the time, if I go outside, I'll do a little bit of it and be like, okay, it's way too hot out here, I'm going inside. So I don't really, I probably won't be able to do certain things as long as other people. But as far as keeping me from doing it, I've always been the kind of person, if I want to do it, I'm going to go and do it. I'm not going to let my skin condition stop me. And, not all kids with ichthyosis are going to be like that, but you got to let them try everything. Because, I mean, there are going to be parents, that don't want their kids to get hurt at all because they have a skin condition or something, or they don't want them doing this or doing that. And each kid can find something that they're good at. If your kid, I know there are some kids with ichthyosis that are confined to a wheelchair. They have, horse therapy camps where they can be outside, they can be in contact with animals. Animal therapy is a really good way to get your kids to participate and to have a hobby that they can do, and it's around people that are trained. And if, there are some kids that just don't like being outside, it doesn't have anything to do with their skin condition, they can read or do crafts or certain things like that. Now as far as other hobbies that I've had, I enjoyed sewing and cooking, and I've never really had a problem with my skin doing that. It's just my main thing is if I use my hands at all, they have to be extremely, moisturized and things like that. Like I do have a little bit of a problem cooking, and your kids might as well if they ever, come up with this interest, and that is you need to make sure that their skin is going to be moisturized, because if their skin's constantly being dipped or in water or soaked in water and then dried, they need to make sure they put lotion on as soon as they do that, because if not, then their skin can get really dry. Or if they go swimming, that was another thing. I loved swimming, not necessarily in deep water, but you definitely need to be aware of like their sunscreen they're using. Definitely put sunscreen on before they get in and allow it to have time to actually penetrate through the skin, not just stay on the surface, because as soon as they jump in, even if it's waterproof, that sunscreen lotion is going to wash off. And then once they get out of the water, dry them off, and if they're going to get back in there, put it on again. Definitely making sure that they're hydrated. Anytime they're doing any kind of activity, water. I just learned this, thankfully. Gatorade. We're taught as kids with ichthyosis that since we don't sweat, we really need to keep moisture in our body to cool us off. We can't lose too much moisture as far as when we're hot, because we're already losing moisture. So when you retain as much moisture and keep as much water in our bodies as we can to keep us hydrated. So the best thing to do is water and Gatorade. Like drink Gatorade and then water right behind it. That doubles the amount of water that your body can take in. So that doubles the amount of hydration that you're getting. So just make sure there's always like a cool rag. Is another thing I used to use. If I got way too hot, I would just put a cool rag on my face, and that would help. They do have these things called it's called an ice jacket. It's basically something you put over you that has ice packs inside of it that keeps your body warm while you're playing. I know some kids that play football and stuff like that, they put that underneath all their protective gear so they can still play. So definitely, ichthyosis doesn't limit a lot of people from doing activities. They just have to take more care of it, or take more of a watch to it, and it's really touch and go until you can really get a hold onto it. Like obviously you're not going to be running as much and jogging as much and using as much energy if you were playing tennis as if you were playing golf. So it depends on the sport you're playing and the time of year. Obviously it would have been better for me to play basketball or soccer, because that was in the winter time, whereas I was playing golf, which is in the summertime. So it depends on, some people are fortunate to not live in the extremely hot state of Florida where it's hot and humid almost year round, which, we do have to watch out for. Even normal kids have to watch out for getting dehydrated. Ichthyosis, kids with ichthyosis have to watch out double, for things like that. If you ever want to take your kids to, like Disney or Universal or something, and they have ichthyosis, I would definitely recommend one of the Mister fans. If you've never seen one, it's basically like a spray. It's a spray bottle with a fan on it. And basically, you spray your face with the water, and then when the fan gets in front of your face, it cools your face off a lot faster. Definitely make sure they drink a lot of water. They definitely need to have a lot of fluids in them to keep their energy up and to keep them from getting too hot. If a lot of parents want to know what to happen when they do see signs that their kid is getting too hot. One thing you might want to do is get them somewhere air conditioned. Don't let them drink something that's extremely ice cold, because you don't want their body to cool down too fast. So have them drink cool water, not extremely cold. You give them, a wet towel, or have them go into the bathroom and, wet their face to cool their face off, because you can actually feel the heat radiating off their face if they get too hot. And you'll know, most parents know the signs of if their kid's getting too hot. They start getting slow, they'll start looking kind of hazy, their face will be bright red. They'll have shortness of breath, and just look for those signs. And the best thing you can do is, don't rush it. Let them cool down on their own time. It does take longer sometimes. But yeah, don't ever let your kids think they can't do anything because they have a skin condition. I'm not saying push them to the max and make them, hate you because you're making them try everything so they know they can do something. But, if they show an interest in something, let them try it. Worst thing that can happen is they find out they can't do it or they're not going to like it. But as far as, letting them try things, there's nothing wrong with that. Let them be a normal kid and try normal things. Let them go to summer camp. Just, make sure that people around them, like their coaches know, or their PE coaches know, or their camp counselors know, hey, they do get overheated really easily. They need to stay hydrated. If they get too hot, let them in the shade, or, only let them play a certain amount, which is what, my mom did with my soccer coach. He said, try to have her in a position where she doesn't run around that much because of my skin condition. If you see her getting really, really red, then, say, hey, it's time to come in and switch a player out with her. And most coaches will work with them, obviously if it's a medical thing, just explain to them. It's really easy for kids, to get caught up in the game, and they won't realize they're too overheated until it's almost too late, until they're almost to the point of passing out from dehydration and stuff like that, or from heat exhaustion. So really telling the coaches and things like that, or the counselors, or people around them, if your kid's going to go somewhere with friends, and just say, hey, look out for them, make sure they don't. Because I've gotten to the point where I've done something I've done a million times before, and I was having way too much fun, and by the time I had stopped, I was like, oh my gosh, I am way too lightheaded, I shouldn't have done that much. And eventually they learn. But if they don't know how to do that yet, definitely make sure somebody around them can see the signs of when they're getting overheated, or making sure they're drinking water every now and then, or every so often, to keep them hydrated. And again, with the suntan lotion, Ichthyosis kids have to put on a lot more suntan lotion than most normal people. Whereas if you go to Disney for 4 hours, you might have to put suntan lotion on twice. Ichthyosis kids would have to put that on 2 or 3 times as much. If I go to the theme park, I put suntan lotion on probably at least 3 to 5 times the whole day I'm there, just to make sure I don't get sunburned. And sometimes that's still not even enough. So a lot of it is touch and go. But the more you get used to doing activities and stuff, the more that they'll learn how to cope with it. But never tell your kid you can't do this because you have a skin condition, because if they have that mindset in their head they can't do something because they have a skin condition and they haven't even tried, then that's not going to do really good on them in life. They might be like, well, I can't do this job because I have a skin condition. They're not going to know unless you let them try. I'm not saying if there's something you want them to do and they just absolutely don't want to do it, don't push them. But if they show an interest in something like cheerleading, or football, you can't say you can't do that. You have a skin condition. You got to let them try. There are ways that they can do almost anything. They just might have a few limitations or a few setbacks, or it might be a little bit harder for them to do certain things. But they can certainly try. And that's another way for kids to get involved and to have more friends, is to let them get out and do those things. Because if you let your kids sit on the couch all day playing video games because you're afraid of them getting too hot, or of them getting hurt or something like that, then they're not going to have very much of a social life. So just let them try to do things, and if they don't like it, or if they can't do it, or if it is too much for them, then that's okay. At least they tried. So again, any more questions, just let me know. So hope you enjoyed.